Hi, welcome to day 38 of the 30-day learning challenge. As part of this 30 days, my goal is to learn the Godot game engine as much as I can, picking up new concepts as well as just learning more about game development in general. So as part of this, yesterday I was extending on day 36. So day 36, I added music to the game, I added sound effects to the game, and as part of day 37, we spent the time actually allowing the user to control the sound. Now, if you remember, if we look back at day 36, when I actually have the audio playing, I had 10 different stream players in there, and they were all just hard coded. I did make a quick modification, I wanted to make sure that this was called out so that we actually build them all out dynamically when we have the audio controller ready. So when the audio controller is ready, we build them all up, we put them all in the sound effects, and now we're ready to go. So we can go ahead and play that music. Everything is played against sound effects right now as part of this. Maybe later as part of a refactoring, I can add the music in here, as well as we can start extending out to add voice, to add a little more granularity and control. All right. So next, let's talk about settings and the actual volume control itself. Because the most important piece about day 38 is going to be that we are actually storing configuration for the user so that when they load up the game, they don't have to continue listening to me sing or listen to those ridiculous sound effects if they don't want to. So they go into settings once. They move the slider to their desired position. Right now, again, master, music, and sound effects. And then next time that they load the game up, it's going to be exactly at that spot. Just to continue on that, the other thing that I did is I extended the settings menu to not only be on the main menu, but once you hit escape and you pause the game, you can get to the settings menu also. So you can access the settings menu during a game or once you're actually out of it. So let's dig into this a little bit. So as part of the settings, I do have the script up right now, and you can see in here, when we load up the game, first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and set the volume slider. So what is this actually going to do? This is going to go into the audio volume controller, and it's going to get the volume. So the audio volume controller reaches out to the bus, and it grabs the volume from there. Now we want the bus to be the source of truth. So whenever we change that scroll bar, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to change the bus, and then later on right after we're going to update the configuration. So we're going to make sure that all three of those are updated and up to date with what's on the bus. So that's the audio controller. If we go back to the settings, so where are we? Set slider, audio volume controller. I don't know why the audio volume controller is taking me to this. You know what? That's really weird. And that might just be a little bit of a bug within Godot. What you needed to see was this right here. So getting the volume. So when we go into settings, we go to audio volume controller, go to get volume. It's going to actually look for an enum, and then we're going to go out to the bus. We're going to get the linear vision version of the volume, and then we're going to go ahead and return that. And that allows us to go ahead and set the value on the actual slider itself. So we have 1, 2, 3 sliders we're doing that with. All right. Now, the next thing that we look at is when we actually set the bus value. So we're setting the master volume slider, which is setting the slider itself. And now if someone moves that slider, we need it to go in the opposite direction. This is where we set both the bus and we save it to configuration. So let's walk through this. Audio volume controller, remember, that's going to be managing everything with the bus. We're going to set the volume, which is the value that gets passed as we change it, and we're going to pass the enum. So let's move on. So first thing that we do when we actually set the volume is we set the volume. Given that it was successfully set, then we store into config. Just storing into configuration right now is this down here. We're going to create an audio config object, which has 3 things. It has master volume, music volume, sound effects volume. And that's going to be coming from here, because remember, this manages everything. That pulls it from the bus. And then we're going to call the config manager save audio config. Now, setting the bus volume is what we had before. The logic has moved a little bit just so that we can so we can add scope to all of these pieces. So setting the bus volume is just getting the bus and then doing it in the opposite. Instead of pulling the linear volume, we're pushing the linear volume. Excuse me. Now, let's go take a look at Config Manager because that is really the bread and butter of this entire thing. Let's see if I can click into this and will it take us there? No, it's not going to. That's okay. We'll work through it. Cool. So the Config Manager does a few things. One, it tells us exactly where that settings file is going to be. One thing to keep in mind is whenever you're doing something, adding it under user is not going to save it with the game. It's going to save it with the actual user. So if they delete the game and put it back on there, if I recall, that file is still there. If you put it with the resources, with the actual game itself, I haven't actually looked much into it, but I'm wondering when there's a game update, if there's a chance that the file may disappear. I can't say anything about corrupt. You could still corrupt something in the user, but it's just not something that seems fair. It seems more extendable and having a longer life to it. So putting it into the user seems like it has a better life to it. Now, I'm not real familiar with this. I do have a little bit more research to do when it comes to something that I'm going to put out in production. For this case, it's working for me and it's providing me with all the value that I need it to. And it's not living within the game itself, it's living out in the user place. And that's my criteria for right now. So the next thing is, because this is actually a node, we're going to go ahead and store a configuration file here and provide some functionality in order to save and retrieve values from that. So saving the audio configuration is what we are actually looking to do in that last part. So when they actually change the value, we need the information to get stored in the configuration. So what we do is we do the config file. When we say set value, we first give it a section name. That's very important. Then we give it an actual key that we want it to store against. So if you're thinking about something, so what it's going to turn into is a configuration file, which is like square bracket section. And then underneath that square bracket, let's build one out here. So it's going to look something like this. So section name. And then what we're going to have is we're going to have key, and then we're going to have value. So you're going to have multiple of these key values. That's what that file looks like. Now, if anything has changed from the documentation that I was looking at from here, again, please let me know. But what you're going to be doing is you're going to be telling it which section to pull out of and exactly what key you're going to be trying to retrieve the value for. Now you can, just a fun note, you can grab all of the keys that are within a section if you want to, and that's something that is that's a function of the config file in here. So anyways, what we do is we take that config file, we set the values on them, and then we're going to do a single save, which is where we say config file.save, and then we provide it with that path. So then that's going to store it out there on the user, in that user location, and provide a way that next time again, when the user closes down the game and brings it back up, that they're going to have everything set the way that they did previously. I mean, I would crank that music if I was you. Those are some pretty bumping beats. I'm enjoying the heck out of it. Anyways, so now if we look at the settings and we take a step back one more time, when we look at setting the master volume slider, we say audio volume controller get volume, audio volume controller get volume. That's going to be pulling the information from the bus. We're going to be getting the bus listener. But most importantly, if we go up just a little bit, this audio volume controller, I said this bus is the source of truth. The first thing that we're going to be doing is using the set bus volume, which is going to be the same thing that we're using when we're trying to set the volume within the, when we change that bar. So that's the reason why this was split out, because we don't want to save it when we're just changing the volume on the ready. So if we look up here again, setting the volume, we're going to be pulling it. We're going to say the master volume out of the audio config, which is coming from the config manager. So we're pulling from config immediately when the game starts, and that's how we can get everything set up. Let me show you. Let's go ahead and show a practical example. I believe.
Hello. Crash.
Every time. All right. So if we go into settings now, we do see that music is down. That's a shame.
So
That's a bad one to test on. So we can turn it up. We turn it all the way down. I'm sure that this is going to be like the use case for everybody. Let's go ahead and run the game one more time. All right, and settings, and we see that music is down, and it didn't start. It didn't start. I mean, that's a win, but that's a loss for all of our ears. So let me go ahead and fix that. We can go in here to sound effects. We can go in the game. The other piece of this that I mentioned is I actually did modify the pause. I do need to fix this UI. But I added settings on here, which just brings up that same screen. So it provides the ability for us to manage everything. So let's turn sound effects back up, resume, throw it down.
here they come.
And there we go. All right, cool. That was a really good... I can't take this seriously. All right. That was a really good way to end day 38. I did have the ability to learn a bit within that. Go ahead and stretch some brain muscles with configuration saving that I hadn't been able to do before. Get everything rounded with our audio settings. That's going to wrap up the audio settings for this time. I do not plan on extending it. I do not plan on extending the number of sounds that I put on there unless eventually, if we do end up extending like the capabilities of the actual towers, maybe that'll come. But in the meantime, I do not have anything planned yet for day 39. Day 39 is going to require a little bit of research ahead of time. But you know what? I'm really excited because this is very much black box, walk it in, let's see what happens. So I hope that you got something out of this today. I hope that you learned something. I hope that you had fun with me, and I hope that you're looking to bump out to that jam. I mean, it's pretty freaking awesome. You know what? I might just put it up on Spotify. What do I have to lose? A lot. Everybody. Everything. Anyways, yes, I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you all.